The theme of my channel recently has been about facing reality. The downfalls of manic pixie dreams, of the failure to choose, the reality that the same end awaits us all. These are all deep dives into how we ignore reality in a way, either by pushing our desires for change onto others, or by recognizing when we fail to change with the world, or acknowledging the one reality we all eventually share: nothingness. All these videos have been my attempt at finally facing the truth in front of me, my own faults and flaws, where my past led my future, and what I could do about it all. I'm quite a pessimistic realist. I force myself to face the worst reality head on because I know I'm weak enough to ignore it forever if not. But in the back of my head throughout all of this is a pain uncovered by learning how to face the truth. It's just as possible, if not more possible, to never face reality. We do this all the time in small ways. There's any number of reasons why you might have not gotten that job despite a downright amazing interview. I mean, it seemed like everything went fine, the answers you rehearsed all fit the questions, so your effort probably paid off. Might just be that someone knew the hiring manager and got the job easy. After all, it happens all the time. Nothing you can do about it. This is one possibility. It is something that exists and has happened and could have very well happened to you. But did it? When faced with all the things that could have happened, there's nothing stopping us from choosing the path of least resistance, the one that makes our efforts so far feel worthwhile. That means we don't feel the need to do more interview prep, or send more than a hey to a potential date, or maybe work out to be healthy, or any number of things it might be. To cope our sense of self with the unknown, we pick one of these infinite options and we call it a day. That becomes our reality. Whether it happened or not is irrelevant. Likely it'll never be challenged, and one day we'll forget that we didn't even know for sure what happened. Because of perception, reality isn't something we ever experience in full. The only truth we know is the one we believe.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
Now, in day-to-day life, there's nothing wrong with this. It's healthy enough and prunes reality into something we can comprehend so we don't obsess over things that have already passed. Overthinking every aspect of an interview isn't healthy. If we obsess over everything that's done, we'll never be ready for what's to come. But what happens when this is applied to something more serious? Maybe something involving other people, coloring your perception of their lives, making you decide to change their reality for the sake of your own. This is what Perfect Blue, the 1997 film by Satoshi Kon, explores. Mima Kirigoe is a pop idol in the trio CHAM, but despite having a decent enough following, Mima is looking for something more. Best summed up by her statement that she leaves CHAM behind to pursue the next step in her career, becoming a full-time actress. At first, she's only able to secure small parts, beginning with a single line in the ongoing crime drama Double Bind, "Who are you?" a line endlessly fitting for what follows. Her agents slowly turn this bit part into a leading role of the show, a step towards everything it seemed Mima wanted. But this doesn't come easy. The once lighthearted and easygoing idol gets her break due to a prolonged rape scene, leading to both her character and her changing for the worse. As the role she plays loses herself to an alter ego, Mima seems to be doing the same. Uncovering a website called Mima's Room, which posts hyper-accurate details about her life and emotions as if it was really her, she's shaken by these accounts and the events connected to it. It really does sound like her, down to knowing small details like how she steps off the train with the same foot first every day. She gets faxes calling her a traitor and fan mail riddled with explosives, while the account begins to differ from her own feelings the further her acting career develops. It claims that she actually hates being an actress, that she misses her fans as an idol, and hates the writer of Double Bind who crafts her scenes. This is where she begins to question her own self as another Mima comes to life around her. It's an image of her in an old idol outfit that taunts, saying how she's tainted from the darker scenes, how she's not the real Mima because Mima would never do those things. It slowly becomes more and more physical, impacting her interactions with the wider world and causing her to lose a grip on what's true. But as it reaches the most physical state, the genuine truth of the situation is revealed. One of Mima's managers at the talent agency, Rumi, is the false Mima of Mima's Room, explaining the intimate knowledge the faker had. Rumi also enlists the help of Tadakoro, an excessive fan of Mima, but only as an idol. He hates the new image the actress has crafted, and due to emails from Rumi claiming to be the real Mima, comes to believe the one he's stalking is truly a fake he must eliminate for the sake of the woman he loves. To save her, he decides to kill her. You can see where this connects to how our opening topic left off. This is the intersection of where one perception of reality crashes into another, with deadly consequences. Tadakoro is a concept we've covered before, someone who builds their entire identity around one thing. His life is loving Mima and nothing more. He centers every facet of his life around her. He works security to be at her shows, he fills his room with pictures of her so she's always there, he keeps up to date with every release or song or piece of merchandise. In a way, this is convenient. It directs his life to something definite. He may not have friends or really any real interaction or a house or money because he spends everything on Mima in some way, but those things aren't important to him. All that's important is her. So those aspects, say, of success that may normally weigh on someone aren't a concern to him, and he gains a sort of freedom within chains. He's trapped to Mima, but that simplifies life down to something certain, something he knows, and something he enjoys. At least, it could. Normally, we witness this concept in relation to a single idea or object. Say, to enforce justice, or for money and power, or for revenge. These are things one can chase, which won't change or will change, but in adaptable ways. Revenge is just an act that needs to be done. Justice is a concept that can be bent to one's whims, and money and power are a mixture of both of those things. People aren't so simple. They change, and their change can't be controlled or predicted with enough certainty to build around them. I mean, after thousands of years, would humans be in such a mess as we are currently if we could predict ourselves? So when someone bases their entire being around not just a thing, but one person, the only result is failure. Tadakoro is so reliant on her that we literally only witness him in the context of Mima, whether that's pictures of her, or talking about her, or actually being around her. We witness the results of his actions away from her, but never actually see him without her. It's because without Mima, he ceases to exist. And then suddenly, here comes a drastic change. She's out of CHAM, she's acting in aggressive and sexual scenes, she's even giving interviews about detaching herself from the simple term pop idol. As he knows her, Mima has ceased to be Mima, which means Tadakoro will cease to be Tadakoro. At least that's one option, and it's a tough one. To accept reality, he's faced with a long reconciliation. His job has become pointless, all the merch he bought becomes worthless, all the time he spent was for nothing, and so on. He would have to change entirely for this. Who can say that they would easily cope with such a thing? So he turns to the easier and, at least at first, simpler option. To deny reality, to believe Mima still exists. She's there, she's still the same pop idol. And she's been replaced by this fake, that's why it seems so different from her. Yes, this is a stretch, but convincing yourself of one lie is easier than accepting your entire life has been one. In any way, he had evidence. Mima herself was posting the truth on her blog and even emailing him directly about the problem. To us, it might be obvious bullshit, but what if you really wanted to believe it? It's easy to take one good sign and run with it. It carries the mind away in excitement and ease, a much less taxing path than the anguish of considering all possibilities. The person who beat you to the job had an unseen advantage. Mima had fallen victim to unseen manipulation. It's hard to prove these things otherwise, so we don't try. We make our own reality anyway, so believing a lie isn't as much of a stretch as we may think. But a problem arises when the target of your lie is ever-changing. Mima still actually exists, and every day she does is more evidence against the lie. Her first line as an actress is evidence against it. The rape scene is evidence against it. Every picture she poses for is evidence against it. As Mima lives her life as a human, that is, someone continually changing and not a static idea, the thing which dictates Tadakoro's life grows further and further away. It becomes harder and harder to justify the lie. So you make up more. You believe that the writer of the show is to blame, and the agent is to blame, and this false Mima is to blame. You make up more and more ridiculous lies to compensate. You become more resolute in all of them, defending them to even the point of killing the very thing you set out to defend. Each lie and each twist on the former lie is more effort you put into maintaining yourself. You dig deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole because now you don't just have to admit your life isn't what you thought, that you discovered that your former efforts were wasted. You have to face the fact that you saw these things and ignored them. You have current efforts that feel the need for justification as your past ones did. The deeper you dig, the harder it is to back out. Even if you feel the walls closing in, it's impossible to prove that forward isn't the quickest way out. Before you even know it, you're changed by trying not to change. You become a monster who can't even see themselves as such. The thing which provided definition is gone, and now all that fills the void is negative emotion, the hate and rage of someone who's convinced themselves the world was against them. These extremes are very literal for Tadokoro. In the first few minutes, he defends Mima from the harassers plaguing her performance. He did a kind thing, and she recognized it and gave him a soft smile. That was the exact thing he lived for. He goes from that to trying to kill her because the woman who smiled at him has changed how she presents herself. But it's not actually fair to say that she has changed. What Tadokoro loved was never actually Mima. Perfect Blue opens on a CHAM performance and its preparation. Before we ever see her, we see fans talking about her and the rumors about the performance. And then, as the performance itself happens, we cut away to Mima living a normal life, shopping, walking home, a stark contrast to the onstage theatrics. There's a clear point here, a distinct line between fiction and reality that blurs as Perfect Blue progresses. This is honestly one of the most satisfying devolutions in cinematic history, and I could go on a whole entire tangent about that and probably will, but that's a topic to be saved for a whole nother video. For right now, what matters is that it draws the distinction clearly, Mima and the performer on the stage. What changes as the movie progresses isn't strictly our lead, but rather the way in which our lead is presented and presents herself. Using a talent agency for this is, once again, just a great filmmaking decision. They literally go on a campaign of rebranding her image, of changing not her, but how people perceive her. There's an idea that a pop idol can't act, so they distance her from the term pop idol as much as possible. It's a transactional thing for her career, nothing more. Mima herself does change, but we'll get into why that is in a second because it relies on others' reactions to this appearance of change. But wishing for her not to change, they make her do so. The thing which sets it all off isn't her, it's the fact that no one knew her to begin with. This is something we discussed heavily with an anime 1 year younger of Perfect Blue, Serial Experiments Lane, which similarly revels in the surreal. So I'll be a bit brief here and direct you to the card on screen now for a more comprehensive and somewhat distinct at this section of today's topic. But here the movie is exploring something very true of the world around us. We only witness a small sliver of reality, especially with something as complex as other people. We're all unique creatures. The way we're raised changes who we are, and that interacts with other people to then change how we feel about them and influences how we'll act, and two people could perform the same action for entirely different reasons with all of this and more in mind. Unless we quiz everyone around us on the exact nature of their lives, we have no way of knowing these things. Even friends of years can surprise us with their motivations or secrets or anything. We're left with an incomplete picture, an end result with a vague outline of why it happened. From there, we have to make assumptions and fill in those gaps, working backwards from our own curiosity and desire to break the unknown. We put reason to the performance of others without their input. There's simply no other option. Our minds are full of versions of people, similar to who they are, but not quite exactly right. Through a mixture of our unconscious tendencies and ideas and our active manipulation of reality, we control who other people are to us. There's a shot right from the first few minutes that shows this perfectly. Tadokoro sits there before the stage, holding the object of his desires right in his hand. Not really, of course, but that's even the point. He makes it look like he is, and to him, he is. An idea of her that he'll hold on to at any cost. And of course, this is all doubled down on with entertainment. The roles actors play are designed to appeal to these feelings, to activate our brain in the same way as reality and draw out engagement and care for a fictional world that's been crafted to feel real. A great story blurs the lines between fiction and reality by making us ponder our own selves or world through the story's aspects and beats. That's exactly what we're engaging with right now. An idol takes this even further by playing a character in the real world. They further blur the distinction, bringing an element of fiction, a character, into the true world around us, one with people, not characters. Now, victim shamers beware, there's no fault on the performer here. They're putting on a show, using themselves to provide entertainment for the sake of others. The dangers and faults of this lie in the ones who abuse their fiction intake to destroy reality. But whatever the intent, this collision of fact and fiction does something odd. It presents an easy transition, or rather a lack of one. Fiction pulls us in for a moment based on a conscious decision to pick up a book or search up a new show or go to a performance. We choose to enter a new world even if it pulls us in more than we expected. What if we don't make the decision to return? In the same way that people like Tadokoro can decide to believe a lie to defend their sense of self, they can also decide to get lost in fiction for similar reasons. For a moment, watching the performance they love, everything is better. The actor on stage sees a sea of faces, but the fan sees one. The one on stage knows nothing about any of the people they're seeing. The one in the crowd believes they know everything about the one they're seeing. They believe they could love this person. They believe this person would appreciate their endless devotion. There's no way to technically prove it false. This creates a fiction better than their reality, one where they formed a connection doesn't exist. They find a satisfaction the world lacks and decide to leave it behind. These decisions are not independent of the world around them. As we conquer our own internal realities, we play a part in the adjacent ones. Because of the actions of Rumi and Todokoro, Mima's reality begins to crumble as well. With the stress of a career change and the unideal conditions which come with such a thing doubled down on in her specific situation of having to act the victim of violent crimes, anyone would find themselves with some doubt. Think about even choosing just between a few places for your next job. Wherever you go, you'll probably believe that the other options would have been so much better, or maybe that you shouldn't have even left the job you had. Now that it's gone, you realize the things you liked about it. We overestimate good memories and devalue poor ones when compared with our present situation, leading us to question every decision we make. We look back and think, I didn't know what was really important. At least if you're like me, that's true, and it is for Mima 100%. Going from the center of attention to a bit part, and only being able to move up and thus have stability by having a bunch of men force themselves on her, even if it's fake, is quite the shift. I think anyone would reconsider this. We just have to force through it by believing that somehow it'll be worthwhile, but nothing will ever kill doubt. Pair this with image change and control and the stark contrast between the world she left behind and the one she finds herself in, and you have a recipe for a crisis of self. She wonders, did I make the right choice? Did I really want this? And just as she's doubting herself the most, she stumbles upon a website that's claiming to be the real her, to know herself better than she does. To say directly, no, you didn't make the right choice. No, you didn't want this. Now, you think this would be easy to shrug off, but in such a dire mental state, you just want the torture to end. We can understand why she goes to it. At her worst, even using it to confirm what she did in the past few days. It becomes more real than her life because she's not sure what her life is. Faced with a lack of certainty about what she wanted, and thus how well she really knows herself, there's a real temptation to believe in something simple, an answer which is written out for you. Literally. In her exact image. Like Tadokoro takes the path of least resistance, this is another form of it. Kill the doubt by believing someone else's lie, because as far as she knows, it might actually not be one. They may know her better than she does, and they're at least confident about it. This gives her negative thoughts validity, shape, and form. This is what we see in the other Mima, which emerges from her computer screen and into the world around her. No one else reacts to it, so it's not something which actually exists. At least not until Rumi directly acts out the part. But doubt still has physical effects. It tires us out, it changes our mental state, it influences our decisions, it makes us defer to others more often, it has physical impact on how we take in the world around us, and thus our reality changes. And so it's fitting that it leaves Mima chasing a form no one else can see. It's her inner demons spilling out into her version of the world. It's showing how it changes shape around us. And this fire is fueled by the perception of stalkers, turning it all into one big web of lies and deceit and negative emotion. She desperately wants to solve this mystery, but it's a complex beast, one that's not easy to tackle, to tear apart every thread and find the truth within it. With the right circumstances, however, it's one that's easy to avoid, at least for a little while. The character Mima plays on Double Bind is written almost like an exact copy of what she goes through. They share the same pain of living with the actions of a self they can't control as her grip on reality slowly fades, and Mima is left fading in and out of what's part of the show and what's reality. The Double Bind scenes slowly grow less and less obviously separated from reality, and even we as the viewer are left to question which is which. Her descent into this state seems oddly natural, but that's because it is. Escaping into a character is the reconciliation of the uncertain and reality of doubt and truth. We have no clear direction as humans. We're subject to not just our own whims, but as we've seen, the wills of everyone else we make meaningful contact with. There's no way to ever predict how someone's life is going to proceed, even on a month-to-month basis, sometimes even week-to-week or day-to-day. We don't know why we exist, and we struggle desperately to understand what our purpose is. It's the pain of sentience, the curse of the knowledge we have. A character has no such struggle. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They were created with a single purpose in mind, and they know exactly why they are. Pain befalls them for a reason. Their struggles lead to something of value, and they're rewarded or punished to fit themes or provide entertainment or really anything, but always something. That's what matters, that there is a why inherent to characters. Mima's character goes through awful things, but in the end they're all forced to make sense on Double Bind. Everything has occurred according to some plan. The screenwriter is like a god of their own reality they've created independent of others. But what's the truth in the real world? That someone is stalking her, and because of the weak mental state of others, she must suffer, and then there is no end to the means, no reason to the pain, it simply is because someone else was? There's no line to follow here, no aha moment that puts it all into perspective. It's hard to deal with the fact that life is a random mess. Pain doesn't happen to make us stronger or test us or anything like that. It happens because it does, and that's it. A bunch of random collisions simply led to a world where you were hurt. It's not an appealing answer to our pattern-seeking brains, but a character forms a pattern. Faced with such a mentally taxing situation, it makes sense why Mima confuses her character and her reality. She skipped days at a time, but they weren't days she was enjoying. She may have done awful things, but we don't know for sure, and she may not even remember them. Becoming someone else is messed up freedom, one her mind took not to prevent pain. Pain is a guarantee, but to at least make it be for a reason. To make her decision and its anguish feel like it was leading anywhere certain. This is where Perfect Blue hit a probable 10 out of 10 status for me. In under an hour and a half, it developed some of the greatest tension I've ever experienced in film, presented us with a deeply engaging story which used simple parallels for maximum effect, and did all of this while dabbling in interesting psychological tangents, but it also explored something I was feeling. The desire to escape into characters. If you've been here for a bit, you know I'm not quite happy with my day-to-day life. I won't rant on it again, I'm just gonna hit the key points here for the sake of validity with new viewers. I hate my day job even though I spent tens of thousands of dollars to get it, and so I work endlessly on YouTube as an attempt to do something I love and kill all of my free time. I want the pain I feel to go to a purpose, to some way I can both enjoy my life and make the world better, and being aware of everything we've discussed here today, I've considered unhealthy options to get through the days easier. One of those is simply escaping from reality. If I was a character who in a couple of years turned into a professional YouTuber, maybe even acting or voice acting, all the pain I'm going through now would have a point. It would be the development of a protagonist into something great. It would carry the idea of perseverance and passion, and a guarantee that things work out in the end if you try hard enough. I could write the character to be someone who smiles through the work they hate and bullshits with the utterly contrary people they're forced to be around, and goes to bed satisfied every day despite it all being an act. they'd go through mental anguish, but this character would work through that and wouldn't have any long-lasting damage from it. This may happen, but there's no guarantee. The world is always uncertain and we can't write characters for it. I don't know if all the work I'm doing now will pay off. I might collapse and go insane before things ever possibly work out. In a way, I'm already playing a character. Every time I tell my personal stories and thoughts, I craft my own idol like Mima, an image of me that's raw and true, but also controlled in delicate ways to appear tragic in the ways I want, relatable but still presentable and intelligent. I try to be as real as possible, but even I can't avoid wanting to be this charismatic anime villain. Even admitting all this is part of the image, it's exactly what that kind of character would do. But I've talked about me and my character enough. What about you and yours? What story are you a part of in this slice of the world, or which one are you trying to write? Me sharing my story is nothing without it reaching others, so let me know yours down in the comments. Yes, because they help this video do well in the algorithm and all of that, but also because it grounds me, it pulls me out of my own story and reminds me I'm not special. You're all just as vivid as me with exceptional stories. I'm just someone crazy enough to put 7 years into telling theirs. As always, a big thanks for letting me tell that story for a moment, especially to our patrons who support my big stupid story directly from those important links in the pinned comment. But to everyone, of course, thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon.